Yes, sir, we will start now. For Azure Data Factory is cloud-based ETL tool, that in Azure platform. So all of you, please don't worry about the notes. After completion of the session, you will be getting this recording session. Okay. It's a cloud-based ETL tool. The basic advantage of this cloud-based ETL tool is, number one, no infrastructure is required. And second advantage with this, no license cost. And simply this is as a pay-as-you-go model. That means how many resources that you have used, how many services that you have used, according to that, the charges will be applied. The two in Azure, when compared with other cloud platforms, the price is very less. So if you compare with AWS, or if you compare with even Google, Azure pricings are very less. Okay. And one more advantage within this, especially within this ADF, the ADF exclusive advantage is almost this is a codeless ETL tool. But still, if you want to write any customized code, like you have provision to write your customized code, but without writing any coding, you can define complex data pipelines. Okay. This is basically advantages of the Azure Data Factory. But to step into this one, what exactly the ADF other advantages is, ADF could able to connect with any kind of data source. That means it can extract data and can write data. Can extract data and can write data. Into all types of storages. The storage can be a file system or it can be a database. It can be of any RDBMS database, or it can be any NoSQL database. It can be of anything. This is another advantage. Again, these databases can be on-premise databases, or it can be cloud within the same platform or other cloud platform databases also. Got it. So finally, ADF purpose already we discussed in the part of workshop. Source, from source extracting the data with ADF, and finally write into your target. So these targets simply called as here, simply called as sinks. Generally, the source databases are RDBMS OLTP systems. The target is warehouse system. An example, we have source systems like Oracle kind of databases. ADF is able to connect with that and able to extract data and load into your target warehouse, maybe data lake or maybe Synapse SQL pool. The Synapse SQL pool is data warehouse environment in Azure Cloud Platform. But between the loading, you can perform the transformation. So before loading, you can perform transformation, or else after loading data, you can perform transformations. That means finally, ADF is supporting two types of ETL transformation operations. Number one is ETL, and number two, ELT. What is ETL? Extract, transform, loading. If you reverse it, extract, load, and then transform. But when to use what type of model, that is simply depends on the data volumes. For less volumes of data, ETL process is okay. And if you talk about ELT, this is suitable for big volumes of data. Okay. So all these explanations we have already done on Saturday session. If anybody missed that Saturday session, workshop session, okay, after completion of the class, ping me, I will share those recordings. Okay, now come to ADF. ADF building blocks. So to construct your pipelines, there are some steps you need to follow. To follow those steps, you need to understand these building blocks. Majorly 5, sir. Number 1, pipeline. And number 2, within the actually pipeline, what exactly the definition of a pipeline? Step by step, after listed all these building blocks, I will explain. And second thing, activities. That means within the pipeline, you will be defining activities. But activities are working with the data. To work with the data, you need data sets. But to create data sets, you need connection strings. These connection strings simply called as linked services here. To create linked service, the prerequisite is integration runtime. Especially in data, these are the major 5 building blocks. What exactly these things, one by one, we try to understand. The first one is pipeline. So mainly as a ADF developer, your responsibility is to create pipelines, to run these pipelines on demand or on schedule based. Okay, based on the business transformation requirements, you have to create pipelines. So simply what is a pipeline means is a set of sequence of activities. So each activity is working with some data operation. So once, suppose you want to perform a complex transformation with single activity, that is not possible. First, in activity number 1, data extraction will happen. In activity number 2, data filtering will happen. Some unnecessary data you want to eliminate. In activity number 3, you want to add a new column for your source data set. Or in activity number 4, you want to update some data. You want to perform some other kind of transformation. You want to manipulate data. In this way, one pipeline contains multiples of activities. But so first, what activity should be executed? Next what? Next what? Next what? So that is what the meaning of set of sequence of activities. Okay. So second one, in a high level, we are creating pipelines, but within the pipeline, activity will be there. Activity is a data operation. Data operation can be of anything. It can be extraction of data, sorting of data, or reading of, so only reading and filtering of the data, or conditional distribution of the data. Suppose some conditional matching records into one table, other condition matching records into other different table, you want to distribute the data. The activity can be anything. Activity is a data operation, right? Within the pipeline, we have to configure activities. The two here beauty is without writing any code, you can configure all these activities. But the activities are working with the data. Always your first step should be reading data. Last step should be writing data. Okay, but reading from what? Some source. Writing into what? Some sink, that means target. So for that source and sinks, you have to create data sets. To work with data, you need data sets. But a data set is a snapshot of physical file. You can say snapshot, or you can use the word called alias of a physical data object. Sir, what is the meaning of this third statement? Anyone can explain? Data set is a snapshot of physical data object. A small example. You have Oracle database. Under this, your database name is MyDB. Within this, you have some sales table. Okay. And you have Synapse or you have data lake here. You have data lake. In data lake, your storage account is my storage. Under this, your container is my data. Now your task is like this. Load data from sales table. To my data container. So this is what your task. To execute this task, the physical data objects are sales and my data. These are physical objects. Okay, but to work with them in ADF, you have to create a data set. That means to perform this task, you need to create two data sets. One data set for sales. Whenever you are creating a data set, the naming standards, naming conventions you need to follow. DS underscore Oracle underscore MyDB underscore sales. So this is data set name in ADF. This is a physical object in Oracle. Sorry. This is physical object in Oracle. This is data set, which is alias for that physical object in ADF. So once data set is created, now your ADF pipeline activities can work with them. Understood. And also one more data set you have to create for my data. So the naming convention for this my data, ds underscore data lake underscore my storage underscore my data. So if anyone looks at this name, they can easily understand, okay, container name is my data. This is available under storage account, my storage. This is in data lake. On that way, you can easily understand. But this naming standard is not rule, it's only recommendation. Okay. So to finally remember to work with, sorry, to work with physical data files or physical data tables, you have to create data sets, right? And the fourth step, to create data set directly, you cannot create data set. You have to create linked service before that. Linked, what is linked service means? Linked service is a connection string. A small example, you want to connect with one website means, first of all, you need some connection string. You want to connect with some database server means you need to have some connection string. Okay. So these connection strings are simply called as linked services in ADF. But these are just connection strings. To establish connection between source and sink, there should be some integration runtime. There should be some integration runtime. These integration runtimes are connectors. You can treat it as connectors. Within the Azure, different services are there. Within Azure, suppose if you talk about Azure only, in Azure, a lot of storages are there. Someone can list them. Within Azure platform only, different varieties of storages are there. What are those? Hello. Mr. Stephen. Shivram. Already you are unmuted, sir. You can answer. So, Stephen, if you talk about Azure Cloud Service, Azure Cloud is not a storage. Under Azure Cloud Services, you have different storages again. So these storages like maybe a small example, Azure Blob. Of course, nowadays that is Azure Blob is kept as part of Azure Data Lake is one storage. And Azure SQL is also one storage. Azure Synapse SQL pool is one storage. And still Azure Cosmos, which is NoSQL database, this is also one storage. Okay, in this way, within Azure only you can see multiples of storages. At the same time, out of Azure also, there are different storages, maybe database or maybe file systems, maybe distributed file systems also. But thing is, a small example, I have Azure Data Lake as source, Azure Synapse as target. Both are Azure services only, but there is no connection between these two things. There is no connection between these two things. So there should be some connector which integrates these two things for data exportation or importation purpose. Simply exportation, importation, instead of using that word, you can say transportation purpose. That is integration runtime. This integration runtime is a prerequisite to linked service. Linked service is a prerequisite to dataset. My statement meaning is, to create dataset, first of all, there should be existed linked service. To create linked service, there should be existed integration runtime. Okay, so is a connection, not a connection provider, connection establisher between source and sync services. Okay, there are three varieties of integration runtimes. Three types of integration runtimes are existed. Come on, sir, already who attended my workshop on Saturday, they can say. You can unmute and you can say answer. Here Naveen has replied in chat. Number one is auto integration runtime. Simply I'm using short word IR, auto integration runtime. Second one, self-hosted integration runtime. There is third one also, SSIS integration runtime. Okay, auto integration, self-hosted, SSIS integration runtime. When to use what integration runtime, the clarity is important to you. Of course, in generally, in our development projects of this ADF, the integration runtimes and linked services are created by the admins. But you should know when to use what and how to use them. But here, as part of this training, you will be learning how to create all these things. Okay, first I'm going to talk about auto integration runtime. When to use this one is, if source and, so suppose you are going to create a linked service for source data set or source table, whatever it may be. If the service is within Azure services, that means if storage, better word is if storage service is part of Azure services, then you have to use auto integration runtime. Got it? An example, my storage is Azure Blob. That means I have Azure Data Lake. I can use auto IR. If storage is Azure Cosmos, I can use auto IR. Even Azure Synapse auto IR. Azure SQL also, for Azure SQL also, you have to use auto IR. If storage is part, remember this word, if storage is part of Azure services, you have to use auto integration runtime. You need not to install anything, you need not to create anything. Okay, so when you have account, when you have subscription in Azure, Microsoft is giving you to that one. Only you have to select that name, that's it. You need not to create anything. Second one, this is special case, which is self-hosted integration runtime. So reverse the above words, sir. If storage is not part of Azure services, then you have to use self-hosted integration runtime. I type the same thing. If storage is not part of Azure services, then you have to use self-hosted integration runtime. So for this example, I can say we have a Oracle table, Oracle database. So if you want to create a data set for Oracle table, means first of all, linked service should be existed. But to create that linked service for Oracle, there should be self-hosted integration runtime. You have to download this and you have to run that integration runtime server. Okay, that means within that server, you have to, within that auto integration runtime server, you have to configure these Oracle database details and Oracle database like credentials. Okay, so in our coming sessions, you will be practically learning how to migrate on-premise data into the cloud warehouse data, like cloud systems. At the time, you will be seeing that one. Till then, just remember when you have to go for self-hosted is, if your storage is not part of Azure services, if storage is not part of Azure services, that means other than any Azure system. Okay, now you answer me like I have a cloud, but my previous cloud was AWS. In that AWS, my storage is S3. I have S3 storage here. Now in S3, I have a blob object or some file. I have blob object or some file I have. Now I want to create a linked service for this S3 account. Now what integration runtime is required to me? First analyze yourself whether this S3 is part of Azure or not. Whether this S3 is part of Azure or not. It's not. Got it? This is out of Azure service. That's why definitely how to go for self-hosted integration runtime. So that can be on-premise databases or that can be other clouds which are not part of Azure. Then self-hosted integration runtimes you have to use. And third one is SSIS. SSIS integration runtime. First of all, you should know what is SSIS. Anyone please answer. What is SSIS? Please answer.
It's also Azure product on-premise.
No, it's not Azure product. Before Azure cloud,
It's an ETL tool.
ETL tool. Okay. You have, so suppose you know Informatica. Informatica is its ETL tool, but on-premise based. Similarly, Microsoft has one ETL tool, that is SSIS. Okay, SQL Server Integration Services. That is the full form of this one. This is ETL of Microsoft for on-premise. On-premise ETL tool. Just imagine for the past 5 years, your company was using this SSIS to run your ETL workloads. But today your data volume is very high. SSIS could not able to process that much of volumes of data. This is what your company has felt. Now your company decided migrate all these SSIS workloads, that means SSIS packages, into the cloud. If Microsoft customer wants to migrate into cloud, means definitely his first option is Azure only, because already he habituated to Azure, Microsoft products. And also second thing, Azure is cheaper. That too for existing customers, there are some additional offers will be there. So that might be the reason the existing SSIS customer is coming to the ADF. Now, but already the problem is within this, in his ETL, already 200 pipelines are there. Of course, These things simply called as packages. Think that there are already 200 ETL pipelines are there. Already they have developed it. If they want to come to the Azure, means again generally they have to develop all these 200 pipelines in the ADF. So development time and cost both will be applied here. Did you understand my meaning? Instead of doing that, the existed SSIS packages as easily available in the SSIS, but they have to be running under Azure cloud with ADF without redeveloping existed pipelines. At that time, you have to use SSIS-IR. Simply SSIS integration runtime. A small example, sir. So to understand to all of you, especially for new guys, to understand about this statement, the third statement, think that your company previously was using Informatica. Okay, now they decided to come to ADF. But in Informatica, they have 200 pipelines, data pipelines. Now, what is the general process? Please try to say. Your company wants to leave Informatica and want to run the air pipelines with ADF. What is the process? You tell me. I'm not asking technical. I'm not asking technical questions here. Sir, anyone?
Like migrating the data from Informatica to the new ADF.
Sir, remember, data is not with Informatica. Informatica is just data brokerage tool. That's it. It is not going to save any data. The Informatica is reading data from source and finally writing data into some other target data warehouse. What the answer you said, that is correct. That is for data migration. But where are my pipelines? My pipelines are in Informatica. So if I decided to come to the ADF means, first of all, I have to subscribe for ADF service. Okay, that means I have to subscribe into Azure account. So within that, I have to add a resource called ADF. And whatever the pipelines I have here in Informatica, all the pipelines I have to redevelop. My company has to redevelop those pipelines. For the redeveloping of these 200 data pipelines, it may take 6 months time with 10 developers. So that means a lot time, lot development cost is applied to me. Got it? But the story is, previously my company was using SSIS. Today they decided to come to the ADF. Today they decided to come to the ADF. Now, no need to redevelop. No need to redevelop those existed pipelines. Pipelines already existed in SSIS. Using SSIR, I can integrate and then I can run those pipelines on ADF. Understand, sir? Without redeveloping of those existed pipelines, I can run as easily into the ADF. Only some configuration related changes I need to do in the existed pipelines. All of you clear about this? In this way, you have totally 5 building blocks. Once again, I repeat that list. The first building block, the high level object here, pipeline. Pipeline is a set of sequence of activities. Within the pipeline, activities will be there. The second one is activity. Activity is a data operation. But data operation to be on data sets, on data objects, to work with data objects, in ADF you need to create data sets. Data sets are aliases or snapshots for a physical data object. Physical data object can be within Azure or can be on-premise or can be in other cloud also. But to create data sets, you need connection strings. These connection strings are created by, that means are established by linked services. So for data set, that is a prerequisite. And number 5. So just recently we discussed about it. That is integration runtime. So without integration runtime, you cannot create linked service. Without linked service, you cannot create data set. Got it? So the third one, fourth one, fifth one are dependent each other. Okay. Now you tell me what are the steps we need to follow for this. I have Oracle database is MyDB. Here I have a table. The table is sales. I want to migrate this data into the Azure data lake. That to the latest one, Gen 2. In data lake, you have Gen 1 and Gen 2. Azure data lake Gen 2. Within this, my storage account is my storage. This is my account. My storage is account. And here I have a container that is my data. I want to export data from sales to my data container, which is in Azure data lake. What are all the steps we need to follow? Please explain. Step 1. I have to create a data set for source table, but directly I cannot create it. To create data set for source, I need linked service. But linked service also directly I cannot create. To create linked service, I need integration runtime. But your data object is out of Azure. That's why your first step here, create self-hosted integration runtime. Self-hosted integration runtime. This should be your first step. Let's say our name is host Oracle integration. Got it. Now next step, integration runtime is ready. In the second step, you have to create a linked service. Remember here, linked service for not Oracle, linked service for MyDB of Oracle. That means you are creating linked service for these databases. Okay, if you treat Oracle as a server, under Oracle server, multiple databases can be existed. For which database you want to create linked service, you have to create for that. So your second step is you have to create a linked service for your Oracle database. Let's say the example name ls_oracle_mydb. Once you have created linked service for database, you can access all data objects from that. You can access tables, you can access views and everything. Okay. Now step 2 is also ready. Linked service is ready. Now step 3. Create data set for Oracle table. Create data set for Oracle table. Suppose example, the example name I am giving here. So what is the naming standard? DS_. Your object is under Oracle server, under MyDB database, and your table is sales. So this is at ADF level. In physical, that is sales in Oracle, but at ADF level, that is dataset. Got it? Now step 3, step 1, step 2, step 3. This is the work only for the source. So from which you want to extract the data. Now about the target, you need to do something. Here my sink, that means my target is my data container that is in Azure Data Lake Gen 2. Here step 4. Please, already have seen 50% of the steps. You try with this. If wrong, I will guide you. What should be the next step I need to do now?
Create data set for
So
data lake.
don't you need any linked service for this?
Existing link service is required.
Yes. To create linked service, integration runtime is not required.
Yes.
Yes, but we need not to create it. We need not to create integration runtime because your target is part of Azure service, right? Azure Data Lake means that is a part of Azure storage services or not. That's why auto integration runtime you can use. That means no need to create integration runtime here. IR for data lake. That means Azure Data Lake. You can use auto integration runtime. No need to create. That means you can avoid step 4. Now come to the step 5. You have to create linked service. Create linked service for Azure Data Lake. That to Gen 2. Gen 2, remember you are not creating linked service for data lake. You are creating linked service for storage account. Create linked service for storage account. What is the storage account here? The storage account name you have given. What name you have given? My storage. Got it. Suppose the example name I am giving like this. LS, that means linked service. My thing is in data lake. Under data lake, my storage account, my storage. Under my storage, suppose I have a container. Okay, no need to specify container here. Only for storage accounts, you have to create. This is our step 5. And step 6, create data set for target container. Target container. Your target container is my data. Okay. So container means that is as a root folder. Sir. Okay, root folder. Under container, you can create folders. Again, under folders, subfolders. Under subfolders, you can keep your files like that. So here the example name for this for my data set is ds underscore data lake underscore my storage underscore my data. So such kind of naming standard we need to follow. Sir, organization to organization or project to project, the naming standards will be different. According to the guidelines of your project, you need to follow these conventions. Now step 6 is ready. Data set is ready. Now to create your pipelines, all prerequisites are ready. Okay, integration runtimes, linked services, based on the linked services, data sets for source and sink. Everything is ready now. Now you have to create a pipeline. Step 7, create a pipeline. To load data from source to sink. Your source is here, Oracle. The two for sales step. The target is our data lake, Azure data lake. Now source, sink, everything is ready. Within the pipeline, what will be there, sir? I have created a pipeline. Just check it over here. Okay. So practical part, tomorrow we'll dedicate the session for the practical part. I created a pipeline. But within the pipeline, you have to keep activities, right? That is step 7.1, I am saying, because that is sub activity. The activity is not independent. Activity is a part of pipeline. Step 7.5, use configure copy data activity. Within the copy data activity, it is asking you two options. One is source. Second one is sink. What is the source name, sir? What is the data set name you have given for the source? Here it is. ds underscore oracle underscore mydb underscore sales. This name I configure in the place of source. Okay. My sink means target. The target is data lakes container. The data set we have given this name. I'm using this one. So all my pipeline configuration is ready. Of course, in this example, in this explanation, only one activity in my pipeline. Now step 8, publish the pipeline. So once pipeline is published, that is permanently saved. If you don't publish it, if your session terminates, or if you quit from the portal, your pipeline is not available. Okay, if you publish, the pipeline will be permanently available to you. And step 9, run the pipeline in 2 ways. What are the 2 ways generally? One is trigger mode. Second one is debug mode. Generally, developer is working with the debug mode. Imagine your pipeline has 10 activities. When you submit a pipeline, when you run a pipeline, because of some activity, your pipeline execution might be terminated. Okay. You want to clearly know that at which activity level the failure happened. You want to know that debug mode is the best. That's why while developing pipelines, while testing the pipelines, we are using debug mode. But if it is trigger, you have 2 options in trigger. You can submit your pipeline on demand. That means when you submit, then only execution will happen. Or you can schedule it. You can schedule a pipeline based on the time or based on the intervals. You can schedule your pipelines. Suppose you decided to run your pipeline hourly once. You can configure. You can schedule it. Okay, in the final phase of scheduling these pipelines, okay, in the final phase of our course, our training part, you will be learning. That too generally, finally here one more thing, sir. You are a developer, again, but your work is not finally the production. So finally you have dev environment, pre-production environment, production environment. So generally developer need not to test with the petabytes of the data. Okay, you are working with some small samples of data, some random samples of data. Suppose once you have developed a pipeline, this pipeline has to be tested, tested by some other team, maybe of same company or by other company. So for that thing that there is a test environment. Okay. And also the third environment is a pre-production. Fourth environment is finally production. Now we have developed some 100 pipelines. How to deploy these pipelines into the next level server? That means into next level ADF subscription. So for this, again, within the ADF, we have to use CI/CD pipelines with the help of Azure DevOps. So these deployments also you will be learning in the climax. Okay. So forget now, for now, it's not like feasible topic. So these 9 steps you need to follow. So especially to run the pipelines, here you have 2 modes. One is trigger mode, second one is debug mode. In the trigger, you can on-demand submit, and also you can schedule that one. So these are the 9 steps you need to follow when you are migrating your on-premise data to the cloud systems. Okay. So in the last, you will be learning, climax of the course, you will be learning how to migrate these on-premise data steps also. Now I have a small question for you. Azure Data Lake to Azure Synapse SQL pool. I want to load the data. Tell me. Please try to answer me. Please comment on integration runtimes now. How many integration runtimes are required? Do I need to create any integration runtimes?
No, auto here we can use it.
Yeah, I can use auto integration runtime. Now my next question: how many linked services are required here? Two separate, because even though both are part of Azure services, but every service, every Azure service is isolated, sir. Every Azure service is isolated. That means you can say it as an independent. That's why one separate linked service for data lake, one separate linked service for Synapse SQL pool, you need to create. Then again, source is some file, target is some table, data set 1, data set 2, you have to create. So once the data sets are ready, then only you can step into the pipelines. Okay. In tomorrow practical, tomorrow we'll see the practical part of this ADF, and very scratch basic onwards I will be starting basic to master level program. You will be learning all varieties of different ADF activities, and in the especially in the ADF version 2, there is a new feature. There are 2 new features have been added. One is the data flows. These data flows, especially data flow is an activity within that mapping data flows, transformations will be there. Many number of varieties of transformations you will be learning. And also the data wrangling activities with the Power Query. The Power Query feature is also added into Azure Data Factory. Power Query you will be learning. And also Azure ADF CI/CD pipelines. What is CI/CD pipelines? ADF pipelines of CI/CD with implementation of Azure DevOps you will be learning. So remember, sir, for this you need not to learn again Azure DevOps. Just within the Azure DevOps there is a service CI/CD. How to use that? If you know, that is enough. Again, so for this, don't feel that DevOps is a prerequisite for this. Okay, and also you will be learning with the Git integrations. And for real-time implementations, how to perform incremental loading, these kind of case studies, incremental loadings you will be learning as part of case studies. And also SCD1 implementation, SCD2 implementation. Still, if you want SCD3 implementations, all these kind of implementations you will be learning. Okay, so it's like a 0 to master. Even though if you have existed experience in any other ETL tool, not a problem. Even though if you don't have other ETL tool experience, also not a problem. Straight away, you can learn this one. Already I announced my prerequisite. The prerequisite is basics of your SQL. Because whenever I create table, you should not ask me how to create a table. Okay. So such kind of basics you should know. How to create table, how to drop a table, how to search for data. That means within the select, if you are master in where class, if you know select statement and where class and basic DDL statements, that is prerequisite. If you are new to the SQL, okay, so separate trainings we can offer you, okay, for without charge for that. So for that I am not the trainer. Other trainer, Mr. Lakshmi Narayana, he is the trainer. He will be teaching you. Okay, so those timings after in tomorrow class we will be discussing. So who wants, all of you, please check the chat. Who wants today's recording session and who wants to continue with these batches to get a tomorrow class link? So please ping to this number 888-61-777-98. So already you people have my number. If any doesn't have my number, please note my number. It's WhatsApp number. Sir, please do only WhatsApp, sir. I repeat, 888-61-777-98. Okay, if you ping me, I will share this recording to you and I will forward your numbers to my Sunav Technologies team. They will be coordinating you. Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Tomorrow we will be meeting. Same time, sir. Tomorrow, same time. Tomorrow also. Same time. Tomorrow we go for practical part of it. Okay. I have
sure,
our
sir.
session. So if you confirm me that you have noted my number, I will terminate this meeting. Once again, I repeat, 888-61-777-98. Okay, all of you, shall I leave? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.